We are taught to look for King Solomon's wealth in the scorched earth of the Judean desert, in the dust of ruined limestone fortresses and the silent stone quarries of Jerusalem. We are told this was an isolated, landlocked kingdom clinging tightly to a dry, promised land. But history looked in the wrong direction. The gold that built the legendary temple, the sheer, blinding volume of metal that coated its inner sanctuaries, did not come from the mines of the Levant. It did not come from tribute taxed from nomadic desert tribes. It came from the abyss. It came from the crushing, unpredictable depths of the open ocean. While surrounding nations looked to the horizon for marching armies, Solomon looked to the coast. He understood a terrifying truth. Land routes are slow and heavily taxed. The ocean is an infinite highway for those brave enough to conquer it. To find the true engine of Israel's golden age, we must leave the safety of the shore and follow a forgotten, cutthroat maritime alliance. 3,000 years ago, Ezion-Geber was a hellscape. Located at the jagged northern tip of the Red Sea, it was a place where human beings were never meant to thrive. The air smells intensely of sulfur and drying salt. The wind blows constantly like a furnace blast, and the sun blisters exposed skin within minutes. Yet this barren shoreline was the launch pad of the ancient world's most audacious maritime gamble. The logistics were sheer madness. Jerusalem was days away across lawless deserts. There were no local forests here, no timber, no skilled shipwrights. The Israelites were a culture of farmers and shepherds who fundamentally feared the sea. Their scriptures treated the deep ocean not as a resource, but as a chaotic, primordial monster. To build a deep-sea fleet in a desert wilderness with a population terrified of the water is a paradox that should have failed on day one. But Solomon possessed a weapon more valuable than silver, an unmatched, cold-blooded geopolitical vision. Solomon had the vision, but his people were landsmen. They did not know how to read the swell of a wave, season wood against sea rot, or navigate by the stars. So he bought the ocean. He entered into a strategic alliance with King Hiram of Tyre, the ruler of the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were the undisputed phantoms of the sea. They did not care for vast land empires. They ruled through salt, sail, and blood. They possessed the closely guarded secrets of deep-sea navigation, secrets they would murder to protect. The terms of the pact were heavy. Israel traded its agricultural bloodline, wheat and thousands of gallons of pure olive oil, in exchange for Phoenician mines and materials. Suddenly, the burning sands of Ezion-Geber became a chaotic industrial hub. Across the desert, massive caravans dragged the sacred cedar of Lebanon. The desert air was choked with the smell of fresh pine, raw sap, and boiling black tar as logs were dragged to the shoreline to construct a ghost fleet. They did not build fragile coastal boats. They built the ships of Tarshish. These were the dreadnoughts of the Iron Age, behemoths of oak and cedar, held together by wooden pegs that swelled when wet and caulked with boiling pitch to seal out the water. These vessels were wide-beamed, deep-hulled, and designed explicitly for the violent physics of the open ocean. They were heavily armored wooden vaults built to survive the crushing currents of the Indian Ocean. Every 3 years, the sails went up. To the locals watching from the shore, it looked like a march to the scaffold. Square-rigged sails dyed in crimson and white caught the fierce northern winds. The fleet cleared the shallows of the Gulf and vanished over the horizon, heading dead south into the great deep. They were leaving the known world behind, entering a void from which many would never return.
The journey was a masterclass in human suffering. The crews navigated by the cold light of the stars and by dropping weighted lines to taste the mud on the seafloor. To exit into the open ocean, they braved the Bab el-Mandeb, the Gate of Tears. It is a brutal maritime bottleneck where red desert winds clashed with ocean currents, creating unpredictable vortexes that could chew a cedar hull to splinters against hidden reefs in seconds. Inside the holds, life was a suffocating nightmare. The air reeked of rotting rations, rancid water stored in clay jars, and the damp, salty rot of the bilges. Scurvy loosened the teeth of the sailors. Dysentery tore through the ranks. When a man died in the dark of the hold, his body was sewn into canvas, weighted with stone, and cast into the black waves. Yet the survivors pressed on, driven by the absolute authority of the king's mandate. Their destination was Ophir, a place that has become the ultimate phantom of history, a name eventually erased from modern maps. Whether it lay in the wealthy kingdoms of southern Arabia, the gold-rich shores of East Africa, or the ancient ports of India, Ophir was a land of staggering, alien wealth. When the ships finally dropped their heavy stone anchors in those distant waters, the trade was brutal and silent. The Israelites and Phoenicians traded basic Canaanite textiles and manufactured oil for treasures that defied imagination. The return cargo was a sensory madness. This wasn't just a collection of commodities, it was a payload of raw, exotic life. First came the gold, 16 tons of pure, unrefined metal, heavy and blinding under the sun. Alongside it came massive quantities of almug wood, a rare, ultra-dense dark timber, polished like bone, that emitted a deep fragrance when cut. They loaded massive ivory tusks caked with dried mud, and the chaotic, piercing screams of wild apes and peacocks caged in the dark below. When the fleet returned to Ezion-Geber after 3 long years, the desert erupted. The gold was melted into ingots, and long, endless caravans of heavily guarded donkeys wound their way up the steep, rocky mountain ascents to Jerusalem. The influx of this maritime wealth completely transformed the city. Solomon used the exotic almug wood to construct the pillars of the temple and to craft harps for the musicians, producing a resonance never heard before in the land. The volume of wealth was so immense that silver became as common as stones in the streets of Jerusalem. But this sudden rise to maritime superpower status came with a devastating geopolitical cost. Every temple wall covered in Ophir's gold was a direct provocation. It was a loud declaration of war to the envious empires watching from afar, the pharaohs of Egypt and the growing shadow of Assyria. The maritime Rhine was a golden fuse, and it was burning rapidly. Then, just as quickly as it began, the grand maritime experiment vanished from history. Solomon passed away, and without his iron willpower, the kingdom fractured into civil war. The critical alliance with the Phoenicians dissolved into mutual suspicion. The secret maritime routes to Ophir and the dangerous navigation coordinates through the Gate of Tears were guarded so fiercely that when the old sailors died, the knowledge died with them. The harsh desert winds slowly reclaimed the port of Ezion-Geber, burying the docks under shifting sand. The ocean currents reclaimed the remnants of the timber. Today, we still stubbornly comb through the dry desert sands, searching for the physical remains of Solomon's glory. But the true secret to his golden age isn't buried in the dirt. The truth remains suspended under miles of dark, silent water, carried by a long-lost ghost fleet that dared to build an empire out of nothing but salt, wind, and human blood.